Future of Data podcast. In this episode, Nathaniel Lin will talk about how data analytics is used to save lives in fire department. Stay tuned. Welcome everyone to another episode of Future of Data podcast. Today we have with us Dr. Nathaniel Lin from National Fire Protection Association, and Dr. Lin is a chief data scientist at NFPA. Nathaniel, welcome to the podcast, and love to hear from you your journey from wherever you get interested in this data-driven world to your current role at NFPA. So love to hear your journey.
Well, thank you, Vishal, for inviting me to this podcast and talk about a journey. It has been a pretty long journey. My whole life has been in data and data analytics, but the real journey in the data science world started about 2000 when I graduated from MIT Sloan with MBA focusing on management technology. My thesis was on how to apply data analytics to predict click-through rates. That was the beginning of internet marketing. And so since then, I have been going through various parts of the industries, leveraging analytics, basically surfing on the tsunami of data analytics. I started off forming the first data analytics team for IBM Asia Pacific. We went from 0 to 15 people. Then I was promoted to be the global head for sales and distribution, worldwide head for the Center of Excellence for Data Analytics in 2004. Then I went to, from IBM, went to Ogilvy, a media company. So I moved from the client side to the media provider side and leverage analytics to solve a lot of business problems. Then I was at Fidelity Investments as customer analysis VP. Then I was at Aspen Marketing Analytics, which was subsequently sold to Epsilon, one of the premier analytic outfit, as the president of marketing analytics. So, and serving AT&T, automotive, and we were there working with many different clients, managing a business over $200 million, leverage analytics. So you can see that my journey started from a high-tech company, went through all the subsequent industries, witnessing how analytics and data science has transformed business models, business strategies, and until, in fact, I also work as the VP of Retail Analytics to serve Aho USA, one of the largest retail supermarket chain, to leverage analytics to do better customer relationships and so forth. So seeing how analytics and data science has changed the world and changed business as we know it, I decided when NFPA reached out to me that I decided to come and join NFPA to help head up their transformation strategy, leveraging data analytics, and now I'm the data scientist working to do the very job that I love to do. And this is a continuation of my journey.
Interesting. I think fascinating. So you are pretty much touching all the key pointers: customer experience, marketing analytics, finance, like all the heavy hitting big use cases of wherever data or analytics is at use. I think you've been there and done that. So I think that's fascinating journey. What made you get to NFPA? And before I get to that, I think last we connected, you baffled me with the fact that NFPA is 120-year-old. I have not even sure what NFPA is and why they exist.
Right.
Love to have your perspective on what NFPA is and yeah.
Right, and Vishal, you are not alone. When NFPA reached out to me and I said, what is NFPA? Never heard of it, even though they're local here in Quincy and about 30 miles south of where I live. Never heard of them, and in fact, you can say NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, is the best kept secret for the past 121 years. So in 1896, the insurance company realizing, over 120 years ago that they need more better data to make sure that they can do a better job in insuring properties. So they decided to put together an association, nonprofit association, so they can collect all the right data, right, all the best practices to make sure that the properties can be kept safe and therefore reduce the potential costs and risks to the insurance company. So since 1896, NFPA has been pride itself to bring all the stakeholders together, insurance companies, government agencies, local authorities, fire departments, fire marshals, consumer advocates, to come to the table and discuss the urgent issues of how to save property and lives from fire and any electrical, any related hazards. So we established a good reputation as a third-party, impartial, non-profit organization that with one single mission is to save lives and save properties from all these fire and electrical related hazards.
Interesting, fascinating. I think. Thank you for the introduction there. Now let's talk about your journey. So what I think such a diverse background, such a beautiful sort of laying out on all the critical area you have been involved with in your past life. What made you come to this role of NFPA? Like what is your sort of bait in joining this group and then helping them out? And so what's your story there?
Yeah, and I'm passionate about data analytics. Deep down, I'm still a quant. However, I'm a quant that loves to tell stories, quants that love to transform organizations and see how that impacts and win, acquire winning strategy for organizations. So throughout the past, over almost 2 decades now, I've seen analytics being applied. However, they're applied at different degrees and with different degrees of success. The reason is not because data science is a problem, but because of organizational issues. And so I wrote a book a couple of years ago to really forming that bridge between pure technical data science and business strategies, and seeing how really have a point of view about how to put these two together, right? And companies that are very large companies that has a lot of existing infrastructures are very, very hard to move towards effective use of data science because of silo, various kinds of silo. And so I was looking for organization that's right-sized. NFPA is about 350 people. We're all co-located. It's an ideal place for it, and make no mistakes about it. Having spent 2 decades making money for corporation and climbing the corporate ladder, I'm a little bit exhausted. And so I'd rather at this stage of my life, if I could leverage everything I learned in my experience to help an organization that truly, right, is making a difference, right, to public safety, public good. It's been a very fulfilling journey. So for the past 1.5 years, I'm here working, building things, and having fun, leveraging everything I do, and with the significant investments from NFPA on infrastructures, on tools, and really open to many of the ideas that I've seen and have implemented in organizations. To do it in NFPA, it has been a really fun journey and very fulfilling. Every single day I come into work.
Interesting. And I think in your description you talk about a book that you wrote. Love to know what that book is and where can I get my hands on that book?
Right, and so the book was written with a view to bridge the gap between technical data scientists and a business strategist. So it's written with kind of bridging the intersection. And I talk about the intersection is the best place for innovations. And if you read a book, a few years ago, it was in vogue called the Medici effect, right? Talk about the Medici family brought in the Renaissance, and because they were at the crossroad and the intersection of two cultures. And the intersection need to be safe, you need to have people who are comfortable in it, people who know both sides, and facilitate the cross-fertilization, utilization of people from different intersections. Unfortunately, most companies, they don't like the intersection because it produces conflicts. The language is different, the culture is different. However, to be successful, you need that. So I wrote the book to create for people who love to be those, what I call them, analytic deciders, that thrives, not just survive, but thrives at the intersection, right? So that they can come together. So the book is called Apply Business Analytics, leveraging advanced analytics and business processes and big data. It can be it can be found and bought from Amazon.com, published by Financial Times Press. So love to hear from anyone who has any comments and suggestions, for dialogue. And
interesting, and I think it's fascinating. I think 2 years back I wrote this book on data-driven innovation, a primer, and I think you are hitting very on a very right note that businesses who are actually the prime user of these capabilities are always left in dark. So techies can go in any forum, dig anywhere, and sort of get their meat and mojo there, and get their insights. But the storytelling that's needed for businesses to actually get used to these capabilities and bring it in-house, I think that's a very critical area. And the more we talk about it, I think that's fascinating, because many times we talk to a lot of businesses, they have no freaking clue. They have no idea what's going on. And in fact, I was talking to one of the city rep a couple of years back, and he said, Vishal, the market is such that everyone is trying to sell us, no one is trying to tell us, right? So it's a very sort of very salesy in many ways. So the more and they say we are coachable, but at least tell us. There's no good outlet where we can learn. So I think I do appreciate you sort of narrating it and helping businesses understand what's going on. So you said the book is Applied Business Analytics, and it's available on Amazon. So shout out to our audience, if you want to check it out this book. I think and I'll check it out too, and I'll hopefully post my review on that. So thank you there. So now let's bring it back. Sorry for the detour. It's lovely to hear that you have something for the audience. I think beautiful. So now let's talk about a data science team structure. So you said you gave a very good rationale of why you joined NFPA, and I think you bring with you a very holistic background on how to data drive and how to sort of drive businesses through data and analytics. So now let's talk about like what is a typical data science team in NFPA look like?
Yes, NFPA basically, because we're a nonprofit, right? We're not one of a large organization, and so I have a very small data science team. But even though it's small, it's really focused on bringing people who are going to be truly the identity designers. So those people who can do deep quants, who can, myself, I still build models. I'm versatile. I started with Fortran and SAS, believe it or not, and I'm doing R and Python, and I do programming. But more important than that is that you need to move into business, right? You understand business. You need to talk business. You need to be able to create solutions, right? And that can be, lack of better word, sample and taste and appreciate by the business owners. Telling them in good stories, one thing, right? But the best way to convince them is let them try it. Do something small, just like a new cuisine, right? I'm a new restaurant owner. I cook up a little sample, right? And I give it to people. They try it. I say, this is wonderful. Can you do more of this? Well, this is the same thing that I need people who can actually go into the kitchen and use everything at their disposal with a focus not to enjoy the cooking, even though we do enjoy the cooking process, but to produce a solution, a sample for the business owner to taste. That being said, we leverage across the organization in NFPA. We're not the only shop in town. We have IT people, we have business owners. We reach outside of NFPA. We have a lot of wide partnerships. We have great vendor relationships. So many things that are non-core, we are more than happy to partner. Right? So I was at IBM's executive team to offshore some of these low-end analytics to India, to Bangalore in 2004. Yeah. So there are things that we can produce, give to the offshoring, but the core business, the strategy, really need to and that's what we do here.
Interesting. So Thank you for that, by the way. So I think we have a common friend, Jeff Chen, I guess, a common friend. So I had a conversation with him, I think last year, I guess, and he was discussing about how New York Fire Department is transforming their capability to predict fire or whatever. And he was discussing about couple of challenges of working in government, right? Working with the speed of government and then whatnot. So they are slow. They are sort of have their own particle pace. Now they are slow. Now let's talk about NFPA. You guys are again non-profit dealing with these slow organizations. So and by the way, you have 120 years of thick cultural element with you. So that's another baggage to consider. So how would a company with that sort of legacy transform itself or sort of be responsive to these new data-driven challenges? And if you can share some of your journey and some of your good or bad experiences, that will be really helpful to understand of how you are getting through this cultural sort of challenges and how, like, what are some of the insights that you have gained on that?
Absolutely, and I think what you just mentioned, Jeff, and know Jeff since I joined NFPA, and in fact, the work that he did, Filecast, Jeff has been very, very good in sharing all the insights with us. So thank you, Jeff, and so
he's a nice guy. Yes,
very, very great, nice guy, and I think he's the deputy chief data scientist now at the Department of Commerce. Yeah. So yeah. So what happened here is that, I wouldn't characterize as slow. I would characterize it as deliberate. Because we have been in the position of learning about best practices, we're very methodical, we're very deliberate, we take time, right? All those could be viewed as impediments, but also viewed as assets, because through that, we're able to form broad relationships. However, in analytics, we are not just methodical, but mostly in the beginning, we need to be ad hoc, right? We need to be focusing on exploratory and to discover. And then, rather than taking time, we need to try a lot of different options. And again, give something which is pre-cooked, before you go to the menu, so to speak. I can give out some samples. So these two cultures are not that different. However, if you view it as that we are, the team, and what we're doing now is a test kitchen. NFPA is the restaurant. Then the two things hopefully will come together, that we constantly were having good menu items, our client will be happy, the restaurant will do a good job and a good business, and then continuously we were generating novel cuisine. So cultural, I would not believe is a challenge, it's actually an asset for everything.
Interesting, and I think well said. And by the way, most of the businesses that at least the bigger the business, the more sort of migrants they have on the challenging sort of on these challenges of cultural sort of adoption and getting approval and getting all these things. And I think you are point on sort of keeping your practices lean. And I think you nailed it when you said that your group is short, so it's nimble, it gets things done. Again, it's less bureaucratic layer and all that. And then the other thing, I think you rightly pointed out that having small successes actually get your leadership on board and all that. I think that's a beautifully said advice, and I think well said there. So now let's talk about some of the interesting use cases of NFPA and what are some of the interesting, like how would NFPA help other fire departments, and you said it's a global organization, I think so, and I think I was discussing on a conference I think last month, and there was an element of that, and I was putting an analogy that fishing is global but fishermen are not, right? So similarly it applies to the fire too, that fire is global but the firemen are not, that they represent their local infrastructure. So how something like NFPA help out these global fire departments in what capacity, and what are some of the insights that you can share around that?
Right, and so there are many fronts, right? We have a lot of different stakeholders. Let's start with the local jurisdiction, right? So you mentioned about the risk modeling that Jeff Chen did. A lot of different, I think there was several projects on risk modeling. We actually did a very similar thing. We take all the demographic data, all the property level data, and violations and zoning and all these data together with the national fire incident data, right, that we've been using for the past 2 or 3 decades. Bring them together to predict risks for example, the state fire marshal of Tennessee. Then we basically go in there and then help them to identify areas that have high risk, and not just telling them what is the propensity or the likelihood of a fire occurring, but also if it occurs, how bad would it be? And that way they can actually focus on the community risk reductions, outreach, and it's interesting that when we compare those models with the events, and I was invited to speak, a week before that, there was a deadly fire where 9 people died. Wow. In Memphis. And the model we produced highlighted that particular property in one of the high-risk areas. So that's one.
Wow.
Second thing is that fire departments is a lot of jobs to do, a lot of decisions they need to make. One of those is to inspect critical properties, right? So now the properties are high risk. You need to inspect them. There are many factors, and this is where the experience and wisdom of fire inspectors, fire marshal come to play. However, with very limited resources, which one should they go first? They have conflicting risk factors. So some of those are political, some of those can be measured, some of those are clearly just guesstimates. However, when you put all these factors together, a good experienced fire marshal is going to choose which one has higher likelihood to be at risk property, right? And we walk into the room where the firefighters there, and they said, the average age is about 62 years old. And many of these experienced fire marshals even retire, fire inspectors will retire. Once they retire, the experience and wisdom will be gone with them. Some of the newer chiefs and fire marshals in their 40s potentially will say, I'm seeing the situation, I can't make a good decision. I wish my old fire marshal, fire chief was right here. Well, what NFPA is doing is we are using an artificial intelligence tool, what we call a property inspection prioritization tool, in short, a PIP tool, to help fire marshals and fire inspectors to kind of train and help them to develop this model so that all the decision making that they make is now captured by the AI tool. So it's a little bit similar like Watson, even though we don't have the same resources as Watson. We're very much the same thing. And we're learning from the collective wisdom of all these seasoned fire marshals. And so that right now the PIP tool is going through the second phase of training. The results are very, very good. So we have right now at least 500 fire marshals, and it's growing to train this tool. And once the phase 2 training is done, is tested, we'll launch it as a common tool for all fire marshals and fire inspectors to use so that they can make better decisions. Now, is that the only tool available for helping the fire marshals? By no means, because there's a lot of critical decision-making points along the fire protection life cycle, and every decision point can benefit from such a decision assist tool. We just need to bring these communities together and learn from them. So and we are now trying to apply it to, as I said, 500 different fire marshals. Now globally, right? If you go to, for example, go to a fast developing country like India or China, I see a lot of new malls, high rises, skyscraper apartment buildings being built everywhere, and they're all sprinkled, right? They have the most advanced new technology that is conformed to the codes and standard NFPA. By the way, we have 300 codes and standards widely used by, not just in the U.S. but across the world. You can have all that. However, when you put the sprinklers, for example, in China, very few people know that that these sprinklers has a fire pump, and they have to be tested, maintained, inspected, from time to time, and the frequency you inspect them are very important. Well, how do you know which ones should be inspected more or less? Well, NFPA now is collecting these data, what we call ITM data, inspection, testing, and maintenance data, and we build a predictive model with some of these companies and agencies and local authority with jurisdictions to see whether we could predict oncoming failures, right, of a fire pump. A fire pump is a critical component of the infrastructure. It's hard to test, and in fact, if you test it not too frequently, it actually degrades the pump's performance. So you want to test it, but you don't want to test it too frequently. Very expensive. So a lot of these things will help us better able to maintain some of these infrastructures. So just three simple examples. Frankly, we have 10, 15 projects going on, and it will take a long time. We'll be here for a while to go through some of these.
And so I think that's fascinating, by the way. And I think one thing that and again I'm taking something from my conversation with Jeff. I think there was a discussion around how the data is of prime importance, like data from government, other government services and all that is of utmost important for this model to work and sort of to craft and further fine tune this model. So in your case, how does that work? Like, so you work with even local government agencies as well for the data, and how would you, or like you have your own data center? So like, how would that dynamic work? If you can shed some light, that will be helpful.
Well, I think thankfully, we have the open data movement. Public data have been accumulated through many vendors. But I think the challenge is that the diverse data sets requiring a certain way to bring them together, right? So that the need for some kind of a universal connector, being able to house them, being able to process, do ETL on demand, being able to leverage all the analytic assets. And so we have just won a federal grant, substantial grant from the DHS, FEMA, to put them together is just such a system.
Nice.
So we call them National Fire Data System, or NFPA, and we are in the second year of that the project, and to basically have the first look in putting together such a data system. When it says fire data, it's not just fire incidents. It's everything: fire operations, fire department activities, both from prevention, firefighting, and forensics. It leverage all of commercial data, such as hopefully insurance data, claims data, building usage data, and so forth. So we're putting together a system together, and those will be the data, the ingredients to allow us to help to create new solutions, not just by ourselves, but with partners out there, and then in turn out those solutions to benefit everybody who will likely benefit from it.
Interesting. I think fascinating, by the way. So I think you mentioned about claims data and insurance data. So I was discussing again a couple of months back with one of the city officials, CIO of a city, and he shared the thought that about potholes and how the roads and basically some trees that may fall off from a property and that disrupt the traffic, and that's their biggest concern. And there was a kind of, so I asked this gentleman that, hey, do you guys share this data with insurance? Like insurance, they whenever they insure a house, whatever, right? They do all this accessibility analysis, and they said they have a hard time in dealing with this private companies to share data with them. Like, how has been your journey? So I think because you rightly pointed out, an insurance company would be looking at your model to calculate their risk. On the other hand, they can actually provide you with their data, so you can do better predictions. So like, do you have some kind of alliances with this that help you get through some of these private company share data, and how does that work?
Yeah, right now, we have so much work to do. Insurance company, as you know, is highly confidential, and they are very protective of the data. If you go into their data center, want to take something out, they're going to strip search you. Just joking, but
Yeah.
don't allow you to, get out there, maybe thumb drive, whatever. So, we may have ways to ensure confidentiality with insurance companies, because frankly, insurance companies will be a big benefactor from something of this nature. And so we're very interested in working with insurance companies. But frankly, we're creating this for many, many different stakeholders. However, I mean, just one, since you mentioned insurance company, I mean, the fear of them sharing data is because of privacy, of confidentiality, of losing competitive edge, right? However, I mean, right now, with the blockchain technology is available out there, potentially you could do some kind of computation and data merging, data integration, without divulging the source. So you have a source-to-source encryption, and frankly, we're looking into it. But again, we have a lot of pots in the burners, and we'll focus on what is really of the topmost importance to our stakeholders.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's, again, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think that collaboration between government and non-profits and this private institute, I think that's one of the, even like we strive to make those relationship happen. So I introduced this gentleman with one of the insurance company and trying to get the dialogue going, because I think even the window is closing down on the insurance too, because if they can share, they can probably save on, and they can still, as you're rightly pointing out, that the blockchain and all this thing, right? So there are ways now in which you can share this data without compromising your sort of core competency. I think it's just having an outlook and having an open perspective. I think that's pretty crucial. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that. So now let's talk about I think one more area where sort of we see one of the leadership bottleneck is recruiting an idea, or sort of how do some company recruit an idea, concept, or tool. Like, what are some of your strategies to sort of, because as I said, that there's a lot of people who are trying to sell you, not enough people trying to tell you what's going on. So what are some of your best practices that you use to recruit a concept or tool or technology or whatever, and bring it in-house? So if you can shed some light.
Right, and I think the key there is don't get distracted by the next new shining object. There's every day you read news accounts, new big data, and then a lot of people would like to sell you things. However, I think my experience is that there's no substitute for actually cooking. If you are actually producing something, right, then you can focus on the results. And so my experience is that if you are pragmatic, if you focus on the results, and you bring people who have experience of cooking with novel ingredients and knowing how to cook, then you are in the best position to leverage the really truly useful technology and partner with the top leaders out there, and leveraging whatever's necessary, but focus on creating values, focusing on the results, both internally and externally. NFPA, I'm not just here building something for NFPA. I'm actually here building something for NFPA stakeholders, right?
Interesting. So I think thank you for sharing that. So now let's talk about, I'm a fire marshal of a small fire station, right? So how would I find you? So like, what are, do I read about you somewhere? Like how would that interaction work? Or does my union or consortium already know about you? So how does that relationship play out, if you can shed some light?
Right. And frankly, today, I mean, NFPA have been working with the local fire department, not just the biggest ones, but also the medium-sized and frankly very small, purely volunteer staffed fire departments. So we understand their pain and their needs. And in this brave world of data and analytics, frankly speaking, very few fire departments could afford a GIS department, or have the ability to even leverage the data that have been collected, for years. So today we are partnering with individual fire departments. Again, we are creating what we call a solutions portal, which will be a web-based or a mobile-based solutions that we created with menu items that the small and medium fire department would like to see, in leveraging the local data. We have the national data, but we also have their local data. And we create solutions for them so that they could use it, and they can actually look at their own local data and see whether those data are accurate. So right now, we try to close the gap, right? We close the loop. In the past, fire departments would only report their data, but they very rarely they could use it. Now through NFPA, we create a solution portal, and they can actually do it. Now they're using it, and if anything wrong with the data, what happens? They're going to say, hey, you know what? Something's wrong. Well, let me come in and fix it. So then it becomes them keeping the quality of the data up to date, accurate, but all at the same time, they come in and tell us, what they like to see and how they can help them make better decisions, and therefore making the community under the protection safer at a lower cost.
Wow.
And the same learning can be leveraged across all the tens of thousands of other similar fire departments.
Beautiful. I think that's fascinating. So how does these guys find you? These fire marshals find you?
They can write an email to big data at NFPA. Okay, and my link. We have a web page on LinkedIn, and go into NFPA.org, and just watch out for all the activity that we are doing. We're generating.
Nice. Wow. So now let me slightly get into your role. So in your role in NFPA, like how much of your role is in-facing versus out-facing? Like how much of your role is taking care of the internal analytics versus vis-a-vis helping maybe a state or city or a group of fire marshals to get their model right or whatever? So if you can share that.
Right. Initially, we have both internal and external stakeholders. Analytics can help both internally in terms of operations, in terms of various CRM and so forth. But the real big value is not just for NFPA, it's for our stakeholders.
Right.
So a majority of our view is to look at what are the needs out there and which one is the most important, the most critical, and so we can help them. I'll give you one example, right? The National U.S. Fire Administration has been collecting fire incident data from every single fire department for the past 30 plus years. And they have long form to be filled out, but there's one section of the form which is called narratives that every firefighter will fill out, right? Some of them will fill very little bit, but if you know the firefighters, I know that you have spoken to many firefighters or not. You go into a house, the firefighter, they love to tell stories, especially right after an incident. They will tell you everything about that fire incident. Wow. But when I read those narratives, you read like a really very interesting, well-written short stories, right? So when we talk to everyone, and a lot of people say, you know what? Decades of these narratives, stories that contain rich and accurate data, have not been at all. But thankfully, we're in the big data age, right? So today, at NFPA, we are actually building the first ever fire ontology that we train, text mining tools that will, in a sense, letting the firefighters tell their stories.
Wow.
So we can leverage that to augment. In fact, we think it's not just augment, but really change, transform the way that data is being collected, data is being used, and data will be leveraged into effective solutions in the coming years. So we're very excited about it. We make significant investments in it. We have, Hadoop cluster. We have a big analytics server because we do a lot of testing. So we have a very powerful server that we're doing some of these text mining and knowledge discovery on these narratives. We also have a lot of other text-based assets, knowledge assets like business standards and so forth. And we've been collecting fire injuries that have been reported on news media for the past decades. And so we can tie those back. And so there's a lot of big data assets that's at our disposal that we really want to make sure that benefits the external stakeholders. Just one of the many examples.
Interesting. I think in your current role, are you the first candidate, first chief data scientist for NFPA, or were there people before? You're replacing someone, or you replace someone?
No, so I was brought in fact, as the data monster. So wow. 3 years ago, we have a new president and decided that NFPA given its 120-year history, needs a little bit of brought into the 21st century. And so he is very, far-sighted. So he put together a strategy. One of the first steps of that transformation strategy is to bring in a data person. So I was born as a data monster, which subsequently I kind of changed it because, data really is not a monster. When it used to be a monster, it should be a data transformer.
Right.
So now, there's a data transformation, and hopefully, I will be the first data scientist, but there'll be many. And right now, we have about 2 or 3 data scientists working with many different data analysts, business analysts, both internal and external.
So I think that's super cool. So let's talk about. I think this is relevant for many of our listeners. So there are a lot of NGOs, a lot of they have no idea what data analytics means. They are sort of again and they're very strapped with sort of budget. They are non-profit to begin with. So what are some of your suggestions, thoughts? Because I think it's so cool to see that you have actually hand grown this practice within NFPA. So what are some of the, say, 3 or 5 insights that you can share to some entrant who's trying to sort of build a similar practice in their own sort of format, or at least the NGO executive who's thinking of hiring one on and just trying to figure out what they should expect from this candidate? That will be really helpful.
Excellent question. So if I can just give you 3 kind of tidbits of what I learned. First of all, do not reinvent the wheel. A lot of things already have been done. There's internet and the easy social networks. You should reach out to fellow analytic practitioners or adopter or users. Post those questions and leverage the thought leadership best practices out there. In fact, for that, I set up an executive network on LinkedIn. So you can go up there. It's an executive network that I set up, and constantly there are senior executives that posing questions. The fellow executive will answer. So don't reinvent the wheel. Secondly, is leverage open data and tools. Tools that used to cost me and my team over $1 million to acquire now is free. One of the things is one of the best kept secret is a tool called KNINE, K-N-I-N-E.
Beautiful tool.
To the partner. Beautiful tool. I would have to pay millions for it.
Right.
A decade ago. It was for free, right? So leverage open data, public data, and leverage the simple tools. The third one is, again, in the same vein, is the partner, right? There are a lot of vendors out there, and things that are non-core, partner with other organizations. NFPA today, what we're building, we would love to partner with others. So, potentially leverage some of the analytic assets, some partnership with organizations like us that has already created things and share knowledge.
Interesting. So that's awesome. So don't reinvent the wheel. Have simple tools and open sources out there. And then, by the way, shout out to NIME. Similarly, I'm a big fan, and even RapidMiner. I think that's again a local company here. Beautiful tool. So thank you for vouching one of at least NIME. So let's talk about hiring a guy. So you are the first guy in, got this magnanimous task of sort of reshaping the organization and making it more data driven. So what are your maybe first or second or first 3 hires that you would imagine as an executive coming to an area where there's pretty much nothing when it comes to data or analytics? So what would those 2 or 3 picks would be?
Great. So what I said before, the best, most important person is an analytic designer, right? People who rise in the intersection. I am that kind of person. So I have a lot of ideas. I'm very hands-on. I need the person who is actually not just the best data scientist, who build the most elegant models, great coder, and and the high skill set, right, in the technical area. But we need to probably find someone that is also equally comfortable when you talk about business, when you talk about business strategy, when you talk about actual solutions. That person needs to really feel passionate about it and can translate that strategy into specific requirements of analytics. So it's very much the Christian model. So if you look at Christian 1.0, unfortunately, there's no 2.0 there. But if you look at the entire value chain, it starts with business, it ends with business. So people who can actually comfortably move through this kind of what I call in my book, shorten it, apply business process, back, right? If you can do that, the process, find people who are comfortable in moving through those process, can understand it, and that they can also find other people like themselves. And these people actually will be your core. Now, whether they have a lot of experience or not is immaterial. I'm looking for potential. And during interviews, I'm usually, talk about something very high level, and they need to be understanding it. Then very quickly, I move into deep data science. They need to be able to follow me and basically, circumspect the entire value chain. And that person needs to be able to follow.
I think beautifully said. So they should very hands-on, and they should have a potential sort of understanding the bigger picture and coming. I think that's well put. So now, now let's talk about FIRE. So NFPA. How far are we from 100% predicting the FIRE outcome? Like, what is your thinking on that as a data scientist for a
FIRE is one of the industry that in advanced analytics and data science will be applied. And we can say NFPA is fairly, kind of the pioneer in this space. So it's almost like, how long will the West be wrong? Well, we just started, the wagon train going to the West. It will take a while, but every step away is going to be exciting, it's going to be fun, and it's going to be very, very fruitful. And so we're looking forward to continue to kind of making the journey and not looking at when it's 100%, because that will be a while, but we're going to be, really enjoy the process and be excited about what we do.
I think I love the fact that you are bringing something like a FIRE ontology. I think that's because I think one thing that I'm fascinated about is like any of these, even in financial risk model, right? So having an ontology will give you sort of a lot of liberty in bringing other classifications. So if suppose there's a new sort of band of risk that emerged, like you have some way to bring it into your model and sort of appreciate that. I think that's I admire you for that. I think that's a very well step. So thank you so much for sharing that. And that brings us to the end of the conversation. So I think before we go, I would love to have, say, your closing remark on this your journey, and what do you want to share with our community that they should keep in mind. That will be helpful.
Well, I would say that come on board if you're not yet on board with this analytics value train. Come on board, but at the same time, you're in it, enjoy it, keep an open mind. What I found is that anything I learn, anything I see, when you are curious and when you have the tools to analyzing some of these data and so forth, it's really exciting and it's very, very fulfilling. And at the same time, NFPA is doing a lot of great things. So please watch out, right? Come to our websites, look at it. We're continually generating solutions. In fact, we may be putting up a public page on our solution photos, shortly. So come and visit us and come frequently, and we will share our stories and, as I said, some of the solutions and assets with you.
I think that's well said. And again, thank you so much, Nathaniel, for being very candid and sharing with us. And you guys are doing some amazing work. I think I'm always a fan of data analytics saving lives. I think, and thank you for sort of keeping us safe from fire. Thank you for sort of making the fire department more efficient. I think we needed someone to do this grunt work, and I think I truly appreciate you guys taking that step and doing that. I think I do really appreciate and admire you for that. And love to have you back sometime in the future discussing your journey from now till then, what all fun stuff you are doing, and love to sort of share with our community how has things been translating. And thank you so much for spending your time with us and sharing with our community these great insights. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Vishal, for this blog.
I thought I was sick of home, but actually I was homesick. Never really knew that I would have to grow up so quick. I'm so uncomfortable, don't know anybody here. Just a couple dudes that I met once, that's it. And I go into the booth feeling nervous. Got butterflies in my stomach like I'm so worthless. Is the mic on? I don't know how to work this. Inside I'm breaking down, I hope I'm not up on the